Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We are very excited to welcome back Trent Woloveck from Jushi. We're going to be talking a little bit about what's going on at Jushi and, of course, kind of getting some more in-depth, some color on some key states that Jushi is in and that people have been talking about in general. So looking forward to that. Trent, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm well, Mackenzie. Appreciate you having us on as always. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Of course. And I appreciate you extra making the time. I know we were talking a little in the pre-call. Sounds like you're on the road. You're busy, you're moving. Where you're going? What are you doing? What's the travel sitch?
Yeah, I'm recovering from last week at MJ Biz and came down to Southern Florida to do a few investor shows, as well as visit our corporate headquarters here as we continue to wrap up a strong 2023 and looking forward to a pivotal year for the industry and for Jushi in 2024. Lots going on for the industry and a lot going on for Jushi. So looking forward to a strong 24.
That's good. It also probably doesn't hurt that the weather is a lot better there than it is in Colorado, but hey, that's fine. You'll take it as it goes.
Yeah, hey, the snow's finally happening in the mountains, which I care about. So we'll get up there, but conversation for later days.
That is true. All right, well, we'll check in on that later. I will say, just before we jump into the conversation itself, I see Stevie in the chat. Hey, Stevie, if anybody has questions, comments, anything, always feel free to put them in the chat. We take them everywhere except for X or Twitter. So just as a reminder there, want to definitely connect you with an expert like Trent. So I think just sort of jumping in, I'd love to start with just going through the states like we were talking about earlier. I think Virginia has been one that you are definitely kind of an expert in, and obviously you are in for Jushi from a company perspective. So I'd love to start with just kind of high level for anybody who's new. What's the general situation currently in Virginia right now?
Sure. So in Virginia, they had and do off-year elections. Everybody in the Senate and everybody in the House was up for a new election, and so you saw monumental turnover from folks that were retiring and new people moving into those seats. You had a Republican governor that was in control of the House with the Democrats in the Senate. And so, a big push by Governor Youngkin to take the Senate. And that did not happen. The Democrats took both the House and the Senate by a slim margin. However, they do hold the majority in both. And so, for the first time in over 50 years, a sitting governor lost a chamber of the legislator in the state of Virginia. So, a very powerful message that I think, was sent to the governor around really two things, the right to choose and cannabis. Those were kind of the two main things the Democrats ran on for this past November.
There you go. Hopefully, I feel like that's a message for other representation around the country as well. We'll see if that's the case. So what are the expected outcomes? It seems like positive to shift those chambers over, but what's your sort of expected outcome, I think, for that?
Sure. So I think, what you're going to see is there's a 60-day session that starts in January on January 10th and will run through, mid-March with then, the governor having to act on something, 30 days thereafter. So mid-April. We feel, very confident that, you continue to see the illicit market grow in Virginia. What was like a $1.8 billion illicit market since the legalization has happened back in 2021. That's grown to over $2.4 billion. And so, the governor had pushed for hemp reform last year, and they've implemented that, and they've done a great job with that. Enforcing it. There's been over $1.7 million of fines levied to people that are not within the guidelines that they put forward, but people still want to consume cannabis, and so therefore they need a spot to go and purchase third-party validated safe tested, grown, track and traced product that's, quite frankly, age verified, so nobody gets it that's underage. And so, you can't have legal possession without legal procurement. It just kind of, goes against common sense.
Yeah.
And so I think, as we continue to move forward in Virginia, I think you'll see bipartisan support, both in the House and in the Senate, to get a bill for a commercial adult use program in the Commonwealth of Virginia come 2024.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And I think so the mix of like the illicit market currently right now, is that majority sort of that hemp derived components, or is it just pure cannabis, but kind of gotten to in some weird way, untracked, untraced, untested, like you're saying?
It's both.
Okay.
It's definitely both. Unfortunately right now, the governor is supporting illicit illicit sales, and majority of that's ran through, organized crime or cartels. And so they've gotten very sophisticated in how, they move cannabis. And so that's, a huge public safety risk, and something that, we have a solution for, and a program in place to be able to fill that void.
Yep. I hope they recognize it's something that needs to be changed soon as well. Otherwise, those kind of not institutions, but those problems can become more entrenched and long term if you let them kind of fester, which makes sense. What's the impact for Jushi in Virginia? What's sort of the positioning there? What happens if we are able to actually, sell through those channels?
Sure. We have our 6 stores open, operational, with 100,000 square foot grower processor facility, done and dusted, and ready to go, and support, continue to support our medical patients there, but then be able to stand up, a channel for the adult use market as well, those consumers. And so, I think right now, we would see about a $50 million lift in EBITDA, with the transition from a medical market that's continuing to mature and growing for us. But obviously, when you flip to adult use, with a less mature medical market, you see a much bigger bump. And so we're in a very unique position to capitalize on that with, our 6 stores in Northern Virginia, and no other retail currently there. So, very exciting business proposition, and, a high levered, flip for us from a revenue and EBITDA perspective as well.
Yeah, sort of a wound spring ready to kind of launch, get going, which makes sense. I wanted to talk a little bit about Pennsylvania. I know it's also a very similar setup in some ways where it's anticipated having those adult use channels and everything, but I don't think we're obviously not currently there yet. Are we any closer? How do we get there? What's sort of the situation for Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I think, we have a very mature medical market there. The big change that's really happened over the last, 6, 12, 18 months, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later, but, with Ohio now, passing the ballot initiative, Pennsylvania is surrounded by, an adult use market on pretty much all corners with New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Ohio. And, if you're driving up and down I-95 and Eastern Pennsylvania, the New Jersey folks have no problem slapping up billboards and telling people to drive across, the state line, and you don't need your medical card. All you need to do is prove you're over 21, and revenue dollars, tax dollars, jobs, the whole nine, are leaving Pennsylvania and going elsewhere, which, hopefully, with the bill that's out there right now, with bipartisan support in the Senate, we can get that figured out in the very near future as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, sorry to look down. I have an exact picture somewhere on my camera roll. I've been going to Pennsylvania because I have family there. So every time we're driving through, I see those billboards, those exact ones you're describing, where it's like, come on over to Jersey, it's good here, and all that stuff.
Yep.
Can't find it. Anyhow,
Yep.
what's the impact if, two neighboring states, if Pennsylvania is able to turn something on, how much does that take from Jersey or Maryland or something like that? Because I feel like they have been boosted, like you're saying, by Pennsylvania being kind of closed off and medical only currently.
Yeah, look, we have real life experience with our stores in Sauget, Illinois, which sits right across from St. Louis, Missouri, and so we've seen that impact of a market flipping from medical to adult use, and having an impact on people not crossing the border any longer and staying in state to purchase cannabis from the in-state operators. So I think you'd probably see something to the tune of a lot of folks losing let's call it 30 to 50% of their business on the border stores, and so all that money would be staying within the state of Pennsylvania. Right now the medical industry is 1.4 trillion, or I wish it was trillion,
I know.
billion dollars.
Sure.
But that's from a medical market, and so you've seen other states like Maryland is probably the most recent example, do about a 2.25 to 2.5x when that flip happens, and so I think something very similar in PA. And so, with 16 current operational stores, that'll get to 18, by next year, with the relocation of 2 stores for us. You'd see another, $50 million EBITDA lift with no additional capex, required in Pennsylvania, just like in Virginia.
Very cool. All right. Well, you have to let me know. So going home for the holidays again, kind of going to Pennsylvania, going to be near your Ardmore store. So I need to know, if you have it, timing wise, when will I be able to go in as a non-medical person to be like, hey, I got to pick up something. What's any expectations on timing? Or because I feel like it's been waiting for so long. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I think the governor has put it into his budget for 2025, and so right now I think there's a bill that's out there in Senate Bill 846, and so the holidays don't help. They're in session, but they're trying to wrap up a lot of things, and so I think you could see that bill move when they come back after the new year, and then the industry is very well positioned, very well built out, that you could see a flip 90 days from it passing. So unfortunately, maybe around July 4th when you go home to celebrate and watch some fireworks, you'll get that. But definitely by this time next year, I think you can swing by the Apple store to pick up the next new iPhone and get some cannabis as well while you're doing that.
I feel like cannabis first. So when you're waiting in the lines at the Apple store, you're like, this is fine. I'm not stressed at all. I'm not wasting time. But yeah, we'll see. Okay. That's exciting. Go. Nice. Yep. All right. Well, anything else in Pennsylvania that you think is been helping people, hurting people in terms of, like you mentioned in Virginia, they've been kind of supporting the illicit market. I know they had the 280E thing, which seems like that would be helpful. What's else is going on in Pennsylvania that's relevant for people to know?
Yeah, I think, look, 280E for us in a market that's, doing, very real revenue numbers, getting an extra 2 to 3 to 4 million bucks, dropped straight to our bottom line, and free cash flow, quite frankly, would be a phenomenal thing. They're also talking about, ensuring that companies are vertical moving forward. So that's another bill that's moving the independent grower processors, and so it's all kind of in lockstep in making sure that we continue to service the patients there in Pennsylvania, but also make sure we keep dollars and jobs flowing into the state.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, that sounds great on Pennsylvania. Again, looking forward to that 4th of July. Maybe we'll see. I know, again, timing is a fool's game in terms of it, but it's always great to guess. Would love to talk, I guess, finally on the state side, Ohio. I know there's been a lot in the news because everyone's very excited. Ohio had made a lot of progress, and it seems like some attempts at walking it back. Where are we sort of now with Ohio?
Yeah, so obviously it passed. 57 plus percent, voted on legalizing adult use cannabis. Over the last couple days, um, the Republican legislators, namely in the Senate, and then the governor himself, felt like they didn't have to listen to their constituents and challenge democracy. And so they were talking about flipping off adult use. However, like over the last 24, 36 hours, since they got a lot of pushback, they've done a complete 180 and are now looking to actually speed up when adult use could be sold in Ohio. And so they actually passed the bill last night that would allow that to happen within 90 days, 28-2. So that's now heading over to the House, and then theoretically would get to the governor for him to sign it. So very fluid right now in Ohio.
Sure.
But the good news is they aren't going to ignore 58% of their your population and gut cannabis, adult use cannabis, which is great. Now we just kind of have to help educate and help them figure out what the best way to implement adult use is for my home state of Ohio.
Oh, you're from Ohio originally?
I am,
Oh,
yes.
where in Ohio? Buckeye proud? I don't know what they say
Oh,
in Ohio, something like that?
yeah, OH.
Oh, wait, yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah, I'm from Westerville, Ohio, so right outside of Columbus.
very cool.
My parents still live there, but my brother and I, we've moved on to
Different spots around the country.
more exciting cities, I guess you could say, for sure.
There you
So
go. Are your parents partially, responsible for voting for cannabis to go through? Have you been educating them on, like, an individual level for? Because I feel like older generations, sometimes it's harder. How
yeah,
are they?
luckily for me, my cousin who is super close with my mom, she moved out to Colorado after she graduated college. Long story short, um, she told my parents, "Hey, I'm getting into this cannabis industry," back in '07, '08 in
Oh, wow.
Colorado,
Early.
and so she yeah, she's responsible for getting me into the industry. But more importantly, she kind of took that first bullet from my parents when they were like, "You're doing
What are
what?"
you doing? Oh, no.
Yeah, and so 16 years later, very
Mm,
fortuitous that we were able to vote on they were able to vote on adult use, in our home state. And look, I still have a bunch of friends that are there as well. And so I was extremely proud of how the vote turned out for not only adult use cannabis, but women's right to choose as well. So that was really cool and powerful to see.
mhm.
But the crazier thing was more people,
I know.
500,000 more people voted for cannabis than allowing a woman to choose what to do with her body, which
I think it
uh,
just shows it's a unifying thing. I think there are a lot of, like,
exactly.
controversial things. I think that's something that, I think what you were saying is can't ignore it basically at this point, which I think is true. Politicians can't pull it back, can't say, "Oh, these cannabis people, they want this thing." I think it's so agreed on, so popular that it feels like it's very much tipped over into stop fighting it and trying to bury it more. How do we do this? How do we navigate it? And
Yeah, yeah, I think the it's a Republican thing versus a Democrat thing
it shouldn't be.
is no longer the case.
Yeah,
I think it's I'll put this one as PC as possible, but a young versus old thing. It's a
sure.
generational thing, and
Mhm.
so um, we've gotten to that tipping point to where now people actually know, understand, and appreciate what cannabis is, and the select few individuals that want to bury their head in the sand about cannabis, their days are numbered.
Yep.
And we have a couple of those roadblocks left, and a governor in the state of Virginia, and the Senate pro tem in Pennsylvania. But I think they can look at Ohio as kind of a great example of what the positive wins are, but
Mhm.
also it's not going to cost the Republicans anything now. In fact, it's probably going to help them.
Yep.
So I think that's a very powerful message that's occurred since November 7th.
Yep, I think that's fantastic. I think it is time for, most Republicans to start to embrace it on the creating jobs side of things, safety side of things, just all, your right to do what you
Yeah,
want within. So it seems like a Republican issue in itself, but obviously it can be both. So fair enough, but that's great to see overall. I would love to hear a little bit. I see Zachary, your question, which is great. Thanks for asking. Would love to hear, you guys are in more states than just those three, of course. What's your general strategy for footprint right now, sort of eyeing new markets and keeping an eye on things? I know it's not in a big expansion phase for cannabis currently, but what's sort of the thought around footprint currently?
yeah. I think we're now on day
I know.
1027 of a bear market. Not like I'm
Mhm.
keeping track or anything, but
Yeah.
um, at this time, I just it wouldn't be prudent
Mhm.
to look at and or expand.
Mhm.
I think with the 5 shots on goal that Jushi has
Mhm.
in the first half of 2024, we'd start to look at that. I think Ohio bolt on from a retail perspective would definitely be on the top of that list.
Mhm.
Do some tuck-ins in Illinois around retail, maybe Maryland with some tuck-ins on retail, would probably be at the top of our list.
Mhm.
And so, we've seen good growth um, in those markets, and we would probably want to participate in those, but right now, until rescheduling happens, safer happens, PA flipping, VA flipping,
Mhm.
our focus is to, continue to position ourselves correctly in kind of our two big core markets, Pennsylvania and Virginia.
Totally makes sense. All right, I wanna get Zachary's questions really quickly. Florida, I know obviously, uh, not in currently, but what's your thoughts on Florida as well?
Yeah, I think for us, let's see what happens with the state Supreme Court down there with the
Mhm.
ballot initiative. Um, you know, when that gets on, if that gets on, there's a lot of really good operators down there that are pretty big in scale,
Mhm.
and so again, in a world where we're limited on capital, it's hard to justify moving into a state like Florida where I think Kim has 128 plus
It is
stores, and
crowded, yes.
yep.
Most definitely.
And look, you need to be vertical, and so you need to build up your GP as well. And so the idea of spending 100 million bucks down here in Florida would be a tough one when we have Virginia coming, and we have a project that we could build out and get a 1x return on every dollar I spend on capex is a dollar to the bottom line of EBITDA, and so I think we're going to continue to stay focused
Yeah.
in those types of markets with those types of returns.
Yeah, I was gonna say spending your dollars where you think you get the best returns totally makes sense, not trying to have an exploratory kind of, phase right now, which makes sense. I think most people are doing
Yep.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
and sorry, just
no, please jump in.
one other thing is,
Yeah.
um, when it comes to M&A and roll up, whether we're the acquirer or the acquiree,
Mhm.
I think footprint is obviously a very important thing
Mhm.
where there are license caps, and so when you look at the map and kind of see who your dance partners could be, Florida is one of those states where you can only have one license, and so it's also important to strategically think through that and what that would look like. So that's another thing we definitely keep tabs on.
Okay, that's fair. In terms of M&A in general, like getting acquiring, anything like that, I'm guessing that changes on the other side of big legislative changes, of course. But are you guys having those conversations with other people? I mean, just kind of keeping your eyes open and seeing what matches could be strong. What's sort of the thing there?
Yeah, I think look, we're deal guys, and I'm a deal junkie, along with a lot of other folks at Jushi, and so we're always having conversations. We're always entertaining and thinking through stuff, and so
Okay. Keeping your eyes
again,
open.
it doesn't happen until there's federal change, but
Yeah.
my favorite word, or and a lot of investors' favorite word, is optionality, because you can't lose when you have options. And so we are definitely keeping our options open, our ears to the ground, and having continuous conversations all the time.
Smart. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, then we've been kind of dancing around it. I know everyone's still speculating and talking about legislative changes. When do we see that? Any sort of general thoughts that we haven't already talked about 1,000 times in terms of we think it's coming, but obviously don't know when. Any thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think rescheduling to Schedule 3 is the magic bullet. Wiping 280 is a really big deal for the industry as a whole. I think that unlocks a lot of additional things as well. I mean, ketamine is a Schedule 3 drug, and a lot anabolic steroids are a Schedule 3 drug, and so Johnson and Johnson still banks, and Johnson and Johnson's listed on a major U.S. exchange. So I think a lot of
Things
that
change.
housekeeping stuff goes away too, and so as somebody who enjoys gambling quite a bit, my over under is kind of sometime in March, April, to get like a nice little boost going into the summer, where they name a nominee, whether that's President Biden or somebody else. Still TBD a little bit, I think.
Very TBD.
I
feel like.
and look, it's a win for the Democrats, and then you'll see the legislators follow shortly thereafter, because they have to have a win too coming into November, and so I think it's important to point out, though, the quantitative data that was needed to be reviewed to understand where cannabis should be scheduled has already been done. So the HHS with the FDA made that recommendation, made it public, and so it's just kind of procedural stuff now that takes time, and so that's all getting lined up, and will be handled. Does that happen December before year end? I don't think so. I hope so.
Yeah, sure.
But I could see them
having some eggnog, hanging out, not
well, in my mind, I just think they all kind of love and joke and to play puns on cannabis folks, and so I could see them doing this on 420
April.
and just
Oh no. Yeah, I guess.
pulling that. But again, it's just it's a process now, and I don't think anybody really knows, but it's a matter of when, not if. That's the good news. So
it's in motion for sure.
Yeah.
Agree. All right. Well, then again, I know we're all patiently waiting for that. In the meantime, company-wise, where are you guys focusing? How can people kind of keep an eye on the progress you guys are making, what you guys are doing? What's sort of the rundown there?
Yeah, I think coming into the new year, you're going to see legislation be proposed for adult use in Virginia. I think you'll you should start seeing movement on, like I said, Senate Bill 846 in Pennsylvania. Ohio implementation will be interesting to kind of, follow and keep up on. But, for us, I think also, ensuring that the balance sheet is teed up and ready to go is something that's super important that we're focused on, and having conversations, on a weekly, monthly basis about, what does that look like, in a rescheduling world or a adult use world for one of those two markets. So keeping busy. And I think, the other beautiful thing is, we're heads down, and the fundamentals have never been, more solid. We've, gotten to operational cash flow break even in Q3, a quarter before we said we were going to do it, which is, again, continuing to show that we're executing from an operational perspective with, rationalizing what's being sold through our stores, and growing and producing better, biomass, genetics, new innovative products, so on and so forth. So I think, you're going to continue to see us do that, and deliver from an operational perspective as well.
That's fantastic. Again, we appreciate all the hard work. It's fantastic. As we are heading into the holidays, would love to get, what's your holiday recommendation if somebody's shopping at Jushi and they're like, hey, I want to pick up something for the holidays, got to get your rec.
Look, we just launched chocolate down in Virginia, which is delicious, and really good. Our gummies have been flying off our shelves. They're chewables in Virginia, and they're trochees in Pennsylvania. But our gummies, have been really exciting. But for me, my favorite is Kind Grind, which is just infused shake. And so, all of those things you can't miss.
Fantastic. Hopefully I get something in my stocking this year that is something like that. We'll see. Who knows? All right. Always insightful. Really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll check in with you soon. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at advisorshares.com.